Crypto fam, welcome to Debate Crypto. How you doing this evening? Blockchain Crusader Miguel, what is up, my brother?
What's up, man? I'm doing good, doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we got Blockchain Crusader and myself, the one and only Crypto Keeper in the house. Guys, listen, grab your skateboards because it's time to grind. Woo! You already know, every single night here with us live on Debate Crypto, we've got, listen, if you need the corny dad jokes, you know where to come. You come here and you're going to get the corny dad jokes from the new dad of 13 weeks. So what do we got on the menu for this evening, Miguel?
We got macroeconomics, we got inflation, deflation, and how it's all going to affect crypto.
Well, that sounds like a full plate this evening.
Oh yeah,
There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Where do you want to kick us off, or where do you want to start?
Let's start off with inflation, right? This is the most common heard, the most comfortable thing to talk about right now. Been thrown around a lot lately. Inflation and how inflation is going to affect crypto, right? Because we've seen crypto thrive in this somewhat stable economy, right? For the past 12 years. But now when we're talking about hyperinflation, more money printing, so on and so on, how is that going to affect crypto? How is Bitcoin going to be able to survive that?
I mean, ultimately, we all know. Well, let me back that up. You would have to have your head buried in the sand to not understand that inflation is here and it has been here for a while, right?
Oh yeah.
And so there's no denying that this has been happening. Actually, let me share my screen, Miguel. Would you please?
Yes.
Let me know when you got that clicked over there. You got that?
Yep, we're good.
So here, look at this chart, guys. So 1971 cost of living. I just want to kind of go over this. Now, mind you, this was 50 years ago, okay? And I do understand that as time goes on, things are going to get more expensive. But let's be real, let's be fair. It is because of inflation, okay? So let's just look at how crazy it's got, right? Living, new house, $25,200. Side note, can't even hardly buy a car for that now. Average income, $10,622 per year. Guys, that's less than $1,000 a month. You would be well below, what's the poverty line, Miguel? Like 16,000 or something like that, I think.
Something around there.
Give or take. It's something right around there. A new car, $3,560. Listen, they want more money than that down right now. So $3,560 is not happening for a car. Average rent, $150 per month. Listen, I've got a mortgage at this point, but let me just throw this out there. 150. Listen, when I was renting, 20, 18, 15 years ago, you were lucky to find rent for less than $750. Right now, everyone's telling me that rent is $1,500 plus. That's a 10x.
Yeah.
Tuition to Harvard, $2,600 per year. We don't have to go through all of them. A movie ticket, $1.50, gasoline, 40 cents per gallon, and a postage stamp, 8 cents. And then we get into the food. I mean, guys, here's the fact. So you can click off there. You can click off.
Yeah, those prices were long time ago.
Yeah, those were a long time ago. But the reality is, like, how far can this be pushed? And so I guess I'll throw it at you, Miguel. Where does it end? Because we are at a point right now where average home price way up, gas prices way up, right? Every single thing that basically one affects the other is up. So where does it stop? Where are we headed? What do you got for us?
When it stops, nobody knows, right? That's the magic thing. The magical thing about this system is we never know, and all we hear is quantitative easing and everything is under control. No, inflation is just transitory, right? We hear these words over and over, and then it comforts people, right? But even the people handling the situation, they don't know when it's going to stop, because all they're trying to do is kick the can down the line so that another generation of leaders or whatever are the ones responsible when the whole thing goes belly up. So there's no real way of saying how or when it can stop, but the more money printing happens, the faster we escalate to that end point.
My problem is, all right, we kick the can down the road. All right, let's say that one administration wants to kick the can down the road to the next, and they want to kick it down to the next, all of that. Okay, but what are we ultimately doing? We are passing a massively like a massively overinflated amount of debt down to our children.
Yep.
You know, I had a daughter 13 weeks ago, and now all of a sudden life's not about me. And what I think about, and why I think why it makes me even more upset, is I'm saying, you know what? We are setting our country up for failure, and we're on the brink of a collapse because we continue to kick that can down the road. We continue to just say, you know what? Let the next person worry about it. You know, back in the day, Miguel, a little story time real quick. I used to have a saying, and the saying was worry about it later. Okay. And what that ultimately meant was exactly that. Like, I'm not going to worry about this right now. I'm going to worry about it later. But that worry about it later mentality was nothing but a problem, because guess what? Later shows up. Later became now at some point. And I think we're at the point right now where I like to compare it to Jenga. The wrong block's about to be pulled, and this thing is gonna topple, and I'm just worried about what it's gonna do to the economy as a whole, and you know, crypto with it. How do you think it's gonna affect the crypto markets, Miguel? Do you, first of all, do you do you believe that this is transitory, or do you believe something else? Like, what are your thoughts on inflation right now?
I definitely don't believe it's transitory, right? That's the spiel that they give us to keep us calm, right? They're never gonna tell you right out, hey, the Titanic is sinking, run to the nearest boat, right? To the nearest lifeboat. They're gonna tell you, hey, everything's under control. We're on the Titanic. This is the best boat possible, and we got the best captain on here, and everything is smooth sailing, no worries. But they know, oh, we're taking on water, and it's coming in fast. So it's not going to be transitory. It's definitely going to hit a point where it's going to collapse. I mean, you can only print so much money. You can only create so much debt on top of debt on top of debt, that it comes to a point where what's the term that they use on Wolf on Wall Street? The chickens come to roost, and it's going to be time to pay the piper, and debts are going to be called, and you're going to be like, wait, I don't got that money. I got to borrow more money to pay that loan off, or at least pay off the interest. And then, an escalation of loans happen. Then we talk about money contractions. Then, people start defaulting on loans. And then that's when this domino effect starts happening. One bank can't pay another bank, and then it's just end. Right? Everything just falls
Yeah,
apart.
for sure. Part of my problem with it is that you can hate an administration, you can hate whoever it is that you want to, and you can place the blame and you can point the finger at whoever you want. But here's the reality: the people that are in our government, as mad as that you might be with them, they are not, and I repeat, they are not stupid. Right? They're just not. Okay. A lot of people will make jokes on that and this, that, and the third. But these people did not get where they're at because for being stupid. All right. So if they sit there and tell you, hey, just this is not a problem, it's transitory, it's just for a little while, we've got a solution. No, they don't. Their backs up against the wall, right? Because we've continued to pass this problem on administration. And I actually have a spin on this, Miguel, that I think that people, when they first hear it, might think that it's going to be a good thing. And I think that it's actually going to be deflation. So if you could share my screen real quick, let me know when you got that up.
Yep. Here you go.
Okay, cool. So first of all, deflation. The biggest problem that you will come like the biggest problem with deflation is this: is that the actual real value of debt increases. Okay, if money is going to be worth more later than it is right now, right? Then the amount of money that you owe on your mortgage, for example, is going to be continuously harder to pay off. So this is the debt deflation theory. And here's how it looks. And this is in regards to banks and people, a combination. We'll get to that in a second. So you have all these debts in the economy, okay, especially for the banks. So what do? They've got to pay off these debts. See, banks loan each other money, right? The money is just a never-ending. I hate to call it this, but it's a big Ponzi scheme. Money is just being passed around, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Put this money here, set this here. It's one of the reasons why I love blockchain, but I digress. So what do? Distress sell. So they've got to get rid of assets to pay off those debts. All right. So then, boom, those bank loans get paid off, right? But now everybody's hoarding their money, which causes the next thing on the line, contraction of the money supply, right? Now everybody's holding onto their money. So all the asset prices start to fall, right? Which then, since all the asset prices are falling, what does that cause? That's going to cause bankruptcies because nobody's loaning money. None of the money's getting passed around, and now these banks are basically defaulting on debts and or on some of the assets that they were holding. They just couldn't take care of it, which then causes what? These banks employ a lot of people, so it causes unemployment. But it's not just the banks; it spreads out from there. It starts with the banks, right? But the banks employ people to do X, Y, and Z, and then they employ people to do A, B, and C. And so that unemployment starts ripping through the economy, which then once the unemployment rate goes up, we already know what happens there. Everyone starts to lose confidence. They lose confidence in our just whole regime, if you will. So once they lose that confidence, they've lost confidence in the banks, they've lost confidence in the administration. Then what do? They start to hoard money. They hoard money because they know that if they put their money into the bank, if they give it back, it's going to be really hard to get again, which then ultimately states, hey, my money's going to be worth more later, which causes deflation. And last thing on this, the interim in between there, Miguel, you can kill it off there. The interim off of that, Miguel, is stagflation, and that's kind of in the middle. And what it is it basically says, hey, look, because I know that my money's going to be worth more later, or possibly going to be worth more later, I'm going to stop buying things right now. If I told you, Miguel, that tomorrow you could buy a car for less than you could buy it today, what are you going to do?
I'm gonna
You're
wait
going
till
to wait.
tomorrow.
Exactly. And so that's what, when people first hear deflation, they're like, well, wait a minute. I'm being told inflation. Well, let me just call it like I see it. If they're telling you inflation, if they're showing you their right hand, you better be looking over in the left. And I hate to say it, but listen, I just call it like I
Yeah,
see it.
exactly right. When you're expecting a fastball, get ready. There's a curveball coming. So it definitely happens like just like that, right? Last year we saw a small scale situation where we saw these things. Pandemic hit, right? And what happened? Businesses needed money. Businesses couldn't get money. Banks weren't giving money. What happened? Money printing, right? The beginning steps of inflation. You can create more money to try to smooth down the problems, but you can only create money for so long until you destroy your own currency. And what we've seen throughout history is that every single currency that has ever been created by man has been destroyed by itself because of money manipulation, because they inflate the currency over and over and over until it's worthless. And the people eventually wake up to this. The governments at those times eventually can't pay debts, and the wealthy of that time eventually find another currency that they transfer over to, and they accumulate that currency before the general population is aware that there's a new currency you can be holding. And then there's a transfer of wealth, right? And that's the same thing we're seeing with crypto, right? Crypto is this new asset, this new thing that we can accumulate before the previous legacy system fiat currency we have crashes and burns. And that's our transfer of wealth that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Miguel. As it relates to crypto, let's talk about Bitcoin, for example. Now, I do not believe, for the record, I don't believe that Bitcoin is going to be the world reserve currency. I don't. I think that
Why
at this
not?
point, because it started off as a peer-to-peer payment system.
Mhm.
All right. The reason that I don't think it's going to be a world reserve currency is for one reason and one reason only. It's not a peer-to-peer payment system for the most part right now. It
Mhm.
is gold 2.0. And so what are
Well, I
people
agree.
doing? People are saying, listen, Miguel, we tried to play poker the other night, right? How did I end up getting paid in poker with the most worthless of things I could, which was fiat, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody in the poker game said, listen, Nick, I'm not paying you in Bitcoin. I'm not paying you in ETH, right? And why was it? Because we look at it as a store of value. We don't look at it as a peer-to-peer payment system. So for that reason, I don't think that it can set up as the world reserve currency. What I do think that it could do, though, and it could solve a lot of problems with this, is I think that a lot of the companies, people like Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy, people like Elon Musk, some of these very, very intelligent men, Kathy Wood of ARK Invest, these people recognize that, hey, this is an asset class that is actually capped. 21 million is all that will ever be created, right? And so with that comes what? Supply and demand. Okay. And the demand is there right now. The supply is not going to change. So what does it become? It becomes exactly what I'm talking about now, a store of value. So people use it as their cash reserves for their companies.
I agree with everything you said there, but think about this, right? It can be the world reserve currency without being the currency, right? Because all they have to do is apply a Bitcoin standard and back their money up with Bitcoin. So it's just like the gold standard, right? They can hoard Bitcoin, right? It's not easy. It has a lot of fees. It's slow. It's whatever, but it's gold. It's digital gold. Instead of having, I posted something on TikTok about it today, right? Fort Knox holding like I think it's like $400 billion worth of gold or something. It's like Bitcoin holds way more than that, and it's digital. It doesn't need to be physically anywhere.
On a memory stick.
Exactly, right. So the network itself is also more secure, not just more valuable than all the gold being stored in Fort Knox, but it's more secure than Fort Knox, right? Fort Knox has a more likelihood of being robbed than Bitcoin does. But aside from that, right, applying a Bitcoin standard to a fiat currency or to a digital dollar, which is coming, right? Digital dollar is coming. Cash is going away. So just all you have to do is apply the Bitcoin standard, just how we had the gold standard, and back your digital dollar, your digital yuan, your digital whatever with Bitcoin. And boom, we have a world reserve currency that's digital. It might not be physical Bitcoin that's being transferred back and forth, but it's backed by gold, by Bitcoin, which is just as way better than gold in absolutely all the properties that gold has, plus more. So that's how I think Bitcoin would be the world reserve currency.
So spot on. I love the thought process there. Here's where I see the hole in that. This is where I see the gap in that. The gap in that is one word: decentralization, right? Our government, every government in existence wants one thing, and it is a 5-letter word. It starts with P: power and control, right?
Okay.
And so how do they keep power and control over something that is as decentralized as Bitcoin is, right? And so I think that is why, and I think it's the only reason why they're going to really fight back. That's why I think that China is doing the digital yuan. I think that's why we are going to have central bank digital currencies. That's why I think we're going to be moving to the digital dollar. It's because they can actually control it. Now, there's a caveat to that. If they were willing to say, hey, look, here's where I think the government could be sneaky, right? The government could be really sneaky and say, you know what? We don't need the power. We just don't need it. We're going to actually let your decentralized Bitcoin work. And in that, as part of that, if we're going to move to a decentralized currency system, a decentralized system of money, then the only thing you need to do, Miguel, just one small thing, I just need you to register your wallet address, please, with the IRS, right? And then that is the wallet that you must use for, X, Y, Z, whatever transactions. That would give on the front side, look like, oh my gosh, they're making Bitcoin the world reserve currency. This is great. The government's actually going to give us a shot. And then on the backside, the government is laughing, going like this, saying, guess what? We have complete control now because it is a freaking public ledger. They can see it all.
So, all right. So to those points where I disagree is Bitcoin is decentralized in the way that the ledger, does the transaction system and, validates everything. It'll be decentralized in that aspect. Yep. But in the other aspect is the government would actually be re-centralizing Bitcoin by accumulating gigantic hordes, right? The government will be the biggest whale of Bitcoin. So if the United States were to become the biggest whale in the world, Bitcoin actually technically becomes centralized because it's being held by the United States. And that is why that same thought process is why the United States, I feel had so much fear for Bitcoin when China had a big portion of mining, because they could have become that centralized whale. They could have just said, hey, sell me all your Bitcoin. We will buy it from all the miners. We will accumulate the most Bitcoin possible at the cheapest rates directly from miners. And once we have all the Bitcoin we need, we will launch our digital currency, right? Backed by Bitcoin, and get around sanctions, get around everything. And I think the United States feared that. They gave up that nuclear button. They gave up that power, that possibility. The United States now has that possibility to do that. So in that aspect, they will still become more powerful than they were before, because they will have the soundest and hardest money ever existed and back their currency by it, which is already the world reserve currency. So they're literally solidifying themselves to forever be the strongest financial power in the world. So I actually think that doing that actually empowers the government. And then at the same time, with the identification of the wallets that you mentioned, it won't actually be that big of a deal, because what will happen is we're not going to be transacting in Bitcoin. We're going to be transacting in digital dollars backed by Bitcoin. So we won't need a blockchain wallet or anything like that. It's just we have the possibility of, whenever we want, we can go and say, hey, I want to redeem my Bitcoin for whatever digital dollars. And if you have to register it, and like, boom, okay, my Bitcoin goes into this wallet right here, send it over, and you're good, right? You gotta have some give and take. So there will be that, maybe that negative aspect, that you would have to register a wallet that they would only send Bitcoin to that one wallet. But then you will be free to, use all kinds of stuff, right? They have Samurai Wallet, I think it's called, which is the Bitcoin equivalent to Ethereum's Tornado Cash, which scrambles up the transactions, which makes it a little bit more secure. So, there's alternatives.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. My question would be, okay, let's say I get on board with that, and I say, okay, the government's going to be the biggest whale in Bitcoin. The United States government is going to adopt and say, hey, we are going to back our US digital dollar, which is coming, by Bitcoin. And we are now the biggest whale, okay? Do you believe that they will be able to effectively make Bitcoin somewhat of a stable coin? Because that is wherein lies, I believe, the problem. Because the problem is, right now, the reason that absolutely no one is going to actually want to use Bitcoin to transact in any type of way other than just a store of value is because of the huge price fluctuations. Do you think that they could scoop up enough with the amount that Grayscale has, with the amount that Michael Saylor has, or Sayer, however the heck you say his last name? I've heard it a couple different ways. The amount of that Elon Musk has, and then just the population in general, right? There's a lot of people that got into Bitcoin at an early, like in 2009, 2010, 2011, and they have a lot of Bitcoin. Could they get it to where the price could absolutely stop fluctuating and essentially turn it into a stable coin?
100%. I believe
Really?
that, the money printer goes burr, and they can print as much money as they want to be able to buy up as much Bitcoin as they want, right? Kind of like the Tether situation, right? Tether mints more Tether, and then you see a fluctuation of prices going up because they buy more Bitcoin. So the same situation can happen. They print money, they buy Bitcoin, they accumulate to a point where no other institution, billionaire, or whatever will hold more Bitcoin than them. So when they dump or whatever, there will be, small price corrections here and there, but nothing of like a 50%, 80% drop like we experience now. And we'll just have, 5, 10, maybe even up to a 20% drop if like a huge huge like accumulation of institutions all dumped Bitcoin at the same time or something. But it would be a lot more stable. 20% would be like drastic. It'd be like the stock market taking a 20% drop, right? It happens, but it's only a very drastic thing, and then there's a recovery. I think it'd be the same exact situation, and that's how they're going to consolidate power.
And actually, let's take that even a step further. Let's say I got on board and said, okay, cool, that's what's going to happen. With the money printer going burr, right, and start brrr, right. With that happening, they could effectively buy up all the Bitcoin and cause hyperinflation at the same time to cause economic collapse of the dollar, literally collapse their own dollar, right? To then say, hey, we've got the solution, and You know what, guys? Here it is. We have the U.S. digital dollar, dun dun dun, right? And it is backed by Bitcoin. You guys asked for it, now here it is, starring Bitcoin. You know what I mean? And so, like, the movie guy comes in, right? And he, in a
Exactly.
world, just when you thought it was over, Bitcoin came, saved the day, starring. You know what I mean?
Satoshi
And it,
Nakamoto.
starring Satoshi Nakamoto. Yeah, and so I think that I think I could get on board with that, and I think in a really diabolical way, that would be ooh wee. Now, listen, the only
Telling
reason that you're grinning right now
I'm
is
telling you,
because
man.
of the amount of Bitcoin that you own, and you know what it would do for the actual price. But then my question becomes, Miguel, if let's look at it from let's flip it on its head now. Now you have the government and they have centralized this and say, hey, this is the reserve. This is, boom, you're going to play by my rules, blah, blah, blah. I mean, do people at that point have to say, okay, you know what, this is worth whatever? Or could they effectively say, screw that, I didn't get in this to be part of your government scheme, and essentially dump what they have?
It will be irrelevant what the retail dumps, because whatever they dump, and which is what the government will want, is people to lose trust in Bitcoin, dump it, and they'll scoop it up, right? Same thing institutions do now. They're just going to scoop it up, and then once they say, hey, Bitcoin is the standard for the US dollar, there's no other say about it. And at the same time, we were saying about collapsing the US dollar, then bringing on the digital dollar, they would default on all their loans, get rid of all the debts that they have, and boom, we got a new currency. It's a digital US dollar. The old dollar died, right? Dollar 2.0, and we couldn't pay because that currency, imploded. So everybody gets a new, start over, and we do it all over again. And they'll find a way. They'll find a way to ruin it the same way they've ruined every other currency in the history of mankind. It'll just be more difficult, right? It'll take savvier people to ruin the Bitcoin standard.
Okay, now let's toss a little bit of fun into the mix. Did the CIA create Bitcoin? Okay. Now, now here's the okay. When I first heard this, I was like, wait a minute, like you guys get the heck out of here, right? But, and I will say, but, gosh, the plan that you just laid out, if you were work if you listen, the government is smart, right? And they want us to basically, so essentially what they've done is they've created the problem and handed you the solution, but we didn't create it, right? And so it does make me wonder sometimes, like, if it goes down that way, then the question becomes, was this the plan from the start? Did somebody have this mastermind of a plan and said, listen, we are already headed down a path of destruction. The dollar is nearing its point where it is going to collapse, just like every other currency in history. We're nearing that point. So what do we do? And there was essentially this boardroom meeting of people throwing out ideas back and forth and back and forth. And then somebody said, what if we create a decentralized currency system where we make people think that it was like a bunch of, no-name hackers that created it. And then we get them to essentially feel like they're rebelling against the government by accepting it. We fight against it. We FUD the market to keep the prices down. All the while, we are doing OTC, over the counter deals. We are literally buying up Bitcoin as we FUD the market. So on the surface, it looks like we're saying, you know what? No, you cannot use this. This is not going to happen. Not on my watch. But when the right hand is saying is handing this, the left hand's accumulating, and then finally gets to the point where the government says, you know what, you win, and then in a really, really backwards way, they've won.
Oh, 100%. I completely believe that. I mean, the possibility is there, right? There are patents that you can look up for electronic, exactly what Bitcoin is, from all the way back in the 90s.
In the 90s.
Way before the people were even thinking about the internet being a thing, they were already thinking about electronic money, right? That didn't have to deal with the way their system works. So the possible plans are definitely laid out, and that's the exact scheme, right? It's make them believe that they're doing something that's rebellious against us, that we are not for, and that we eventually bend the knee to because we succumb to their will. And it empowers them to believe in the government, that we're here for them. But at the end of the day, all we did was we printed money as much as we could to buy as much as we wanted, get everything we wanted, and then we said, hey, we're not paying these debts. We're getting rid of this dollar 1.0 because we got dollar 2.0 over here with backed by Bitcoin. And what this Satoshi Nakamoto did, he locked up a million coins and went away. The biggest whale at the time, right? Probably still one of the biggest whales out there, to my knowledge. And that's a huge amount, right? And that's just not just Satoshi Nakamoto wallet is the U.S. government's wallet, but they can have tons of wallets all distributed, and we don't know where those wallets would be, right? They know how to work the system to a level where we won't know where all those bitcoins are stored.
So listen, I've got the tagline for this broadcast. Okay, you ready for it? It's going to say, Bitcoin, the CIA's Trojan horse.
Yeah, man.
Fire,
I've thought about that.
Is Bitcoin the CIA's Trojan horse?
I've thought about that since I got into Bitcoin. I got into Bitcoin thinking the same thing. Oh yeah, we're gonna fight back against this US dollar. We're gonna fight inflation. Yeah. And then I was like, wait a minute. What? Hold on. All these conspiracies that people talk about have been coming to fruition more and more and more, right? Just like that video I sent you. I don't want to talk about it on here, but you know what I'm referencing. Yeah. Bunch of conspiracies that eventually transformed into reality with true evidence, with research behind it that proves it. And it's like we're running out of conspiracy theories to believe in because they're all coming true. So yeah, that's just one more to the pile.
I can get on board with it. I don't know. I think it's a really interesting thought. I think that it's flat out scary, but I think in the end, if the reality is, just like I said earlier, the Jenga structure has to fall. There's no getting around it. It's either going to fall as a result of us continuing to make the money printer go brrr, right? Or it's going to fall because in a really backwards way, we create deflation and we end up going through that whole awful cycle that I went through earlier.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. There must be sacrifices made to evolve. That's just the way nature works. That's the way businesses work. That's the way agriculture works, right? Farmers need to burn their crops, to burn the fields, to then be able to, regrow their fields, right? What happens in nature is let's talk about, like, let's say lizards as an example. One of them has a weird, spot on their back that, attracts the attention of more insects to them. And that one feeds more, that one replicates more, and then the other ones starve out and die. And then that one's the one that becomes the new mutation, the new species of that first form of the lizard, right? Same situation. That's just the way the legacy system has to go. It needs to burn so that we can have a new legacy, a new system.
So it's time to watch Rome burn, essentially, is where we're at. It's time to watch it burn.
It's rinse and repeat, right? Every empire has fallen, every currency has fallen, and a new currency has emerged, a new empire has emerged. Same situation.
Miguel, it's been a great chat. Guys, thank you so much, Crypto Fam, for joining us this evening. We freaking love you guys. We appreciate all of your support. Guys, if you're not subscribed to us, subscribe to us at Debate Crypto, right? Doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Click out of the live chat. Smash the likes for us. Guys, we love you, and we hope you have a great night.